The security guard put his hand on her shoulder and walked her toward the door. 12 people watched. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. On the way out, Veronica Reed stopped. She turned around, looked past the tellers, past the branch manager, past the customers pretending not to see what was happening, and locked eyes with the man standing by the elevator in a tailored navy suit. Trent Chandler, regional director, the billionaire's son. The man whose family owned the bank that had just thrown her out for asking a question. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She adjusted her jacket, tucked her business plan under her arm, and said 5 words. "See you in court, Trent." He laughed. The branch manager laughed. The security guard looked at the floor. But what Trent Chandler didn't know, what nobody in that marble lobby could have guessed, was that the woman he just had escorted out had an 814 credit score, a business plan reviewed by 2 accounting firms, collateral worth 3 times the loan amount, and a cousin who was a federal compliance attorney. She wasn't bluffing. She was loading. And what she would uncover during that lawsuit didn't just destroy Trent Chandler's career. It exposed a pattern so wide, so deliberate, and so documented that the Department of Justice opened an investigation that brought down the entire bank. This is that story. Pause for 2 seconds and help me do something fun. Comment your city and country. I want to see how global this community really is, and I am looking for the 2 viewers watching the farthest apart today so I can pin the winner. Now back to the story, because things are about to get very interesting. 2 weeks earlier, Veronica Reed woke up at 5:14 a.m., 16 minutes before her alarm. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of the apartment she shared with her mother and her daughter on the 2nd floor of a duplex in Decatur, Georgia, just east of Atlanta. She was 34 years old. She had worked as a licensed esthetician for 11 years. 4 of those years at a high-end spa in Buckhead, where she built a client list of 340 women who requested her by name. 3 years ago, she left to start her own business. She rented a small studio, built her brand, saved $48,000, and filed every tax return on time. Her credit score was 814. She had never missed a payment on anything in her life. Today was the day she was going to walk into Heritage National Bank and apply for a $275,000 small business loan to open her 2nd location. She had the numbers. She had the plan. She had a commercial lease already signed, contingent on financing. In the kitchen, her mother, Alicia Reed, was already making coffee. Alicia was 61, retired from 30 years as a postal worker, and the kind of woman who ironed her clothes the night before and laid them out on the chair. She had taught Veronica 2 things. Never owe anyone an explanation for your ambition, and always keep your receipts. "Are you nervous?" Alicia asked. "No," Veronica said. Then, a little. Alicia set a mug on the counter. "You have better numbers than half the people who walk into that bank. You sit in that chair and you present your plan like you belong there. Because you do." Cassie Reed, Veronica's 7-year-old daughter, came padding into the kitchen in her socks. "Mommy, are you going to buy the new store today?" "I'm going to try, baby." "Can I come?" "Not today, but when it opens, you're going to cut the ribbon." Cassie's eyes went wide. "With real scissors?" "With real scissors." Veronica kissed her daughter's forehead, picked up the leather folder with her business plan, and walked out the door. She had no idea she was walking into the worst day of her life and the beginning of the most important fight she would ever have. Subscribe now and stay to the end, because I am going to show you one document hidden inside this bank's own records that quietly explains why they denied Veronica before she even sat down. And you will not unsee it once I point it out. This is not drama. This is exposure. And we are about to break down exactly how they did it, step by step. Heritage National Bank's Midtown Atlanta branch was all marble and glass. Veronica arrived 15 minutes early. She wore a charcoal blazer, her hair pulled back, and carried the leather folder Alicia had given her as a birthday gift. Inside the folder, 38 pages, business plan, 3 years of tax returns, profit and loss statements, a signed commercial lease, a letter from her accountant projecting $410,000 in first-year revenue at the new location, and a personal financial statement showing $48,000 in liquid savings plus $82,000 in home equity from the duplex she co-owned with her mother. Total collateral, $130,000 on a $275,000 loan. The branch manager's name was Gary Wood. He was 43, thin, and wore a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He brought Veronica into his office, offered her water, and opened the folder. He didn't read it. He flipped through the pages the way a person flips through a magazine at a dentist's office. Fast. Disinterested. He stopped on the personal financial statement, glanced at the numbers, and closed the folder. Ms. Reed, I appreciate you coming in, but I'm going to be straightforward with you. This application doesn't meet our lending criteria for this loan category. Veronica blinked. Which criteria specifically? The risk profile. My credit score is 814. Credit score is one factor among many. I have $130,000 in collateral for a $275,000 loan. My debt-to-income ratio is 22%. My business has been profitable for 3 consecutive years. Gary Wood folded his hands. Ms. Reed, I understand this is disappointing, but our underwriting team has reviewed the profile, and the answer is no. Your underwriting team reviewed my profile in the 4 minutes since I sat down. Gary Wood's smile disappeared. I'm going to have to ask you to accept the decision. Veronica leaned forward. I want to speak with someone above you. That's not how this works. Then I'd like it in writing, the denial, with the specific reason. Gary Wood stood up. I think we're done here. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Can I get security to the East Conference Room, please? Veronica sat perfectly still. She did not raise her voice. She did not move. She looked at Gary Wood and said, You're calling security because I asked for a denial letter? I'm calling security because this meeting is over. The guard arrived. He was young, maybe 25, and clearly uncomfortable. He put his hand on Veronica's shoulder and guided her toward the door. In the lobby, she passed the teller windows, the waiting area, and the glass elevator. Standing beside the elevator, checking his phone, was a man in a navy suit. Trent Chandler, 29 years old, Regional Director of Heritage National Bank's Southeast Division, son of Julius Chandler, the billionaire who founded the bank 40 years ago. Trent had been visiting the branch that morning for a routine walkthrough. Veronica stopped. Are you management? She asked. Trent looked up from his phone. He looked at her. He looked at the security guard. He put the picture together in under a second. I'm the regional director, he said. Is there an issue? Your branch manager just denied my loan application without reading it, refused to give me a written reason, and called security when I asked for one. My name is Veronica Reed. I have an 814 credit score and $130,000 in collateral. Trent glanced at the security guard, then back at Veronica. His expression was polite, but empty. The kind of expression people wear when they've already decided you don't matter. I'm sure Mr. Wood made the appropriate decision based on the application. We trust our managers. You trust your managers to deny qualified applicants without explanation? Ma'am, I'd suggest you apply at another institution if you feel this one isn't the right fit. Veronica looked at him for 3 full seconds. Then she adjusted her jacket, tucked the leather folder under her arm, and walked toward the door. At the door, she stopped. She turned around. See you in court, Trent. He laughed. One short laugh, more reflex than amusement. Gary Wood, watching from his office doorway, laughed too. Veronica walked into the parking lot, sat in her car, and called her cousin. Her cousin's name was Michelle Walker. She was 39, a compliance attorney who had spent 6 years at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau before opening her own firm in downtown Atlanta. She specialized in one thing: lending discrimination. When Veronica called and described what happened, Michelle was quiet for a long time. They didn't give you a written denial? No. They're required to. Under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, any lender who denies a credit application must provide a written adverse action notice within 30 days. If they denied you verbally and refused to put it in writing, that's already a violation. Can I sue? You can, but I don't want to sue over one denial. I want to find out if this is a pattern. Michelle filed a complaint with the CFPB and simultaneously submitted a Freedom of Information request for Heritage National Bank's Home Mortgage Disclosure Act data. The public lending records every bank is required to file. The data came back in 3 weeks. Michelle sat in her office for 2 full days going through the numbers. When she called Veronica, her voice was different, not angry, cold. The kind of cold that meant the numbers were worse than she expected. Veronica, Heritage National Bank denied 94% of Black applicants who applied for business loans above $250,000 over the past 5 years. Silence. The approval rate for white applicants in the same loan category was 71%. And here's what makes it worse. The average credit score for denied Black applicants was 762. The average credit score for approved white applicants was 688. They approved people with lower credit scores, significantly lower, and higher debt-to-income ratios, and less collateral. Veronica, this isn't a rogue branch manager. This is a system. Real quick, pause and drop a comment below. Tell me if you have ever been in a situation where you knew something was wrong, but were told to stay silent. Share your thoughts, because this community is built on people who refuse to look away. Michelle Walker filed the lawsuit on a Tuesday morning. Reed versus Heritage National Bank, N.A. The claim, systematic racial discrimination in lending practices in violation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and the Fair Housing Act. She named the bank, the branch manager Gary Wood, Regional Director Trent Chandler, and Heritage National Bank's parent holding company, Chandler Financial Group, controlled by Julius Chandler. The response from the bank was immediate. They hired Sophia Parker, a litigation partner at one of Atlanta's largest firms. Sophia filed a motion to dismiss within 10 days, arguing the case was an isolated customer service dispute elevated to a civil rights claim without evidentiary support. Judge Gwen Lee denied the motion. She read Michelle's statistical filing, the 94% denial rate, the credit score disparity, the 5-year data, and said 3 words: discovery is open. That night, Veronica sat on the floor of Cassie's bedroom, reading her a story before bed. Cassie was holding a picture she had drawn at school, a building with a sign on it. "What's that?" Veronica asked. "That's your new store. I put flowers in the window." Veronica held the picture. Her hands shook slightly. She folded it carefully and put it in the pocket of her jacket. "It's beautiful, baby. When are we going to open it?" "Soon." She didn't tell Cassie about the lawsuit. She didn't tell her about the security guard, or the branch manager, or the man in the navy suit who laughed. She kissed her daughter's forehead, turned off the light, and sat in the hallway for 10 minutes, holding the drawing, letting the anger sit in her chest where it could be useful. If you love your mom, you need to subscribe right now, because at the end of this video, I am revealing one secret that nobody in that courtroom understood. There is a reason Julius Chandler's own legal team tried to settle before the trial even started. And when I show you the internal document they were trying to bury, you will realize this family knew exactly what they were doing for years. Trust me, the secret is worth it. Discovery broke the case open. Michelle Walker subpoenaed 5 years of internal loan files, underwriting memos, and email correspondence. Heritage National Bank fought every request. Sophia Parker filed 3 motions to limit scope. Judge Lee denied all 3. What came back in the document production was devastating. First, the underwriting memos. Heritage National Bank used an internal scoring system separate from the standard credit score. They called it the Community Viability Index. On paper, it measured neighborhood economic stability. In practice, it assigned lower scores to applicants from majority Black zip codes. Veronica's zip code, Decatur 3032, received a CVI score of 38 out of 100. A white applicant in Buckhead with a lower credit score and less collateral received a CVI score of 91. Second, the emails. Trent Chandler had sent an email to 5 branch managers in January, subject line, Q1 lending targets. In the email he wrote, "Focus approvals on A-tier neighborhoods. B and C-tier applications should be processed, but do not prioritize. We need the portfolio to reflect stability." Michelle's forensic analyst mapped the tier system. Every A-tier zip code was majority white. Every C-tier zip code was majority black. The word race never appeared in any document, but the architecture was unmistakable. Third, the whistleblower. A junior loan officer named Trey Hill contacted Michelle Walker's office 6 weeks into discovery. He was 31, had worked at Heritage for 4 years, and had quit 3 months before Veronica's denial. He said he was willing to testify. "I flagged the CVI system to my supervisor in my 2nd year," Trey told Michelle. "I showed him the correlation between CVI scores and racial demographics. He told me to stop asking questions. He said the system was actuarially sound. I asked him what that meant. He said, 'It means we don't use the word race, and neither should you.'" Michelle now had 3 things no defense attorney could explain away: statistical proof, documentary evidence, and the human witness who had tried to stop it from the inside. She called Veronica. "They built a machine," Michelle said. "A machine that says no to black people without ever saying the word black, and they've been running it for at least 5 years." The courtroom was full. Local press occupied the first 2 rows. Civil rights organizations had sent observers. Veronica sat at the plaintiff's table next to Michelle. She wore the same charcoal blazer she had worn to the bank the day she was denied. Alicia Reed sat in the gallery, hands folded in her lap. She had taken the bus. Across the aisle, Trent Chandler sat with Sophia Parker and 3 associate attorneys. His father, Julius Chandler, sat in the gallery behind them. Julius was 68, silver-haired, and had the expression of a man who had been in rooms like this before and had always left them richer. Judge Gwen Lee entered. She was 52, compact, precise, and had a reputation in the Northern District of Georgia for running her courtroom like a clock. No theatrics, no delays, evidence or silence. Opening statements, plaintiff first. Michelle Walker stood. She didn't touch her notes. "Your Honor, this case is about a machine, not a machine made of metal, a machine made of policy." Heritage National Bank created an internal scoring system that systematically funneled black applicants into denial and white applicants into approval. They did this for 5 years. They denied 94% of black applicants for loans above $250,000, while approving 71% of white applicants. Applicants who had lower credit scores, higher debt ratios, and less collateral. They did not use the word race. They didn't have to. They used zip codes, and every zip code they penalized was black. She paused. She looked at the gallery. My client, Veronica Reed, walked into that bank with an 814 credit score, $130,000 in collateral, and a business plan reviewed by 2 firms. She was denied in 4 minutes. She was escorted out by security for asking why. And the man who laughed at her when she said she would sue is sitting in this courtroom right now. Sophia Parker stood next. She was calm, articulate, and expensive. "Your Honor, Heritage National Bank serves 140,000 customers in the Southeast. It has lent over $3.2 billion in the past 5 years. The Community Viability Index is a legitimate risk assessment tool used to protect depositors and shareholders. It does not reference race. It references economic indicators, property values, default rates, income stability. The plaintiff is asking this court to equate geography with race. That is not discrimination. That is lending." Judge Lee nodded. "We'll begin with the plaintiff's witnesses. If you are still watching, you are exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode. Because this exact pattern of institutional discrimination and legal revenge shows up in another billionaire banking case I am covering soon, and the evidence Michelle uncovers here becomes even more important in that story. Michelle Walker's first witness was her forensic data analyst. He projected a map on the courtroom screen. On the left, Heritage National Bank's CVI tier system. On the right, a racial demographic overlay of Metro Atlanta, color-coded by census data. The maps were identical. Every red zone, C tier, automatic downscoring, overlapped precisely with majority black neighborhoods. Every green zone, A tier, priority approval, overlapped with majority white neighborhoods. In statistical analysis, the analyst said, a correlation this precise has a probability of occurring by chance of less than 1 in 14,000. Sophia Parker cross-examined aggressively. Isn't it true that property values in these neighborhoods are objectively lower? Property values are one variable, but the bank weighted the CVI score to override individual applicant creditworthiness. A black applicant with an 814 credit score in a C-tier zip code was rated as a higher risk than a white applicant with a 640 credit score in an A-tier zip code. That's not risk assessment. That's a filter. You're interpreting data, not intent. I'm reporting that the outcome is indistinguishable from intentional racial exclusion. Sophia paused. She looked at her notes. She sat down. Michelle's second witness was Trey Hill. Trey walked to the stand in a gray suit, no tie. His hands were in his lap. He looked straight at the judge. Mr. Hill, you worked at Heritage National Bank for 4 years. Is that correct? Yes. And during that time, were you involved in processing loan applications? Yes. I processed between 15 and 20 applications per week. Did you notice a pattern in how applications were approved or denied? Yes, I noticed it in my first 6 months. Black applicants with strong profiles were getting denied. White applicants with weaker profiles were getting approved. I ran the numbers myself on my own time using the bank's internal data. The disparity was clear. What did you do? I brought it to my supervisor, Kevin Harden. I showed him the correlation between the CVI scores and racial demographics. I told him the system was functioning as a racial screen. What was his response? Trey paused. He told me the system was actuarially sound. I asked what that meant. He said, it means we don't use the word race, and neither should you. The courtroom shifted. Reporters wrote. Judge Lee's pen stopped moving. Did you escalate the concern? I tried. I submitted a written report to the compliance department. I never received a response. 3 months later, my quarterly performance review dropped from exceeds expectations to needs improvement. No explanation. 2 months after that, I was moved to a branch 45 minutes from my home. I resigned. Mr. Hill, why are you testifying today? Trey looked at Veronica, then he looked at the gallery, then at the judge. Because I watched it happen. I counted it, I reported it, and nobody cared. If nobody says it out loud, it just keeps going. Sophia Parker approached for cross-examination. Mr. Hill, isn't it possible your performance review declined because your work quality declined? My loan approval rate was the highest in my branch for 3 consecutive quarters. But your supervisor felt differently. My supervisor felt I was asking questions he didn't want answered. That's your interpretation. That's his email. I kept it. Sophia turned to the judge. Your Honor, we haven't been provided with any such email in discovery. Michelle stood immediately. Your Honor, the email was produced by the witness independently. We disclosed it 2 weeks ago as a supplemental exhibit. It was filed as Exhibit 47. Judge Lee checked her records. I have it, Ms. Parker. It's in your materials. Proceed. Sophia Parker looked at the exhibit she hadn't read carefully enough. She sat down. The moment that broke the case came on day 2. Michelle Walker called Trent Chandler as a hostile witness. Trent walked to the stand the way he walked through bank lobbies, smooth, unhurried, certain. He wore a navy suit. He crossed his legs and folded his hands. Mr. Chandler, you are the Regional Director for Heritage National Bank's Southeast Division? I am. You oversee lending operations across 34 branches in Georgia, Alabama,
And South Carolina?
Correct. Were you aware of the Community Viability Index scoring system? I was aware of it, yes. It's a standard risk tool. Did you design it? No, it was developed by our underwriting team. Did you approve its implementation? I approved several operational systems during my tenure. Mr. Chandler, I'd like to direct your attention to Exhibit 31. This is an email you sent to 5 branch managers on January 9th. Could you read the highlighted section for the court? Trent glanced at the screen. His expression didn't change. Focus approvals on A-tier neighborhoods. B and C-tier applications should be processed but do not prioritize. You wrote that? I did. And when you said do not prioritize, what did you mean? I meant allocate resources where they would have the highest return. A-tier neighborhoods have lower default rates. Mr. Chandler, every A-tier neighborhood in your system is majority white. Every C-tier neighborhood is majority black. You're aware of that? I'm aware of the demographic breakdown, but the CV I was not designed around race. Let me ask you directly. When Veronica Reed walked into your Midtown branch with an 814 credit score, $130,000 in collateral, and a profitable 3-year business, and was denied in 4 minutes, did you believe that was appropriate? I trust my branch managers to make appropriate lending decisions. She asked for a written denial. Your branch manager called security instead. Did you think that was appropriate? I wasn't involved in the day-to-day interaction. You were standing in the lobby, Mr. Chandler. She spoke to you directly. She told you her credit score. She told you her collateral. And you told her to apply at another institution. Trent shifted in his seat. I was being courteous. And when she said, "See you in court," and you laughed, was that courtesy too? Trent's jaw tightened. I don't recall laughing. Michelle turned to the judge. Your Honor, I'd like to play Exhibit 52, lobby security footage from Heritage National Bank's Midtown branch, time-stamped 10:47 a.m. The screen showed the lobby. Veronica walking toward the door, the security guard behind her. She turns. She speaks. Trent looks up from his phone, and then, clear as daylight, captured at 1080p, Trent Chandler laughs. One short laugh, head tilted back. Then Gary Wood, watching from his office door, laughs too. The courtroom was silent. Michelle turned back to Trent. Does that refresh your recollection? Trent said nothing. No further questions. Judge Gwen Lee ruled in favor of the plaintiff. Veronica Reed was awarded $1.2 million in compensatory damages. Heritage National Bank was ordered to dismantle the Community Viability Index. The court referred the case to the Department of Justice for a pattern or practice investigation. But here is the detail I told you to wait for. The secret that the Chandler family's legal team tried to bury before the trial ever started. During discovery, buried in 14,000 pages of internal documents, Michelle Walker found a memo. It was dated 3 years before Veronica's denial. It was addressed to Julius Chandler personally from the bank's own internal compliance officer. The memo stated, in plain language, that the Community Viability Index produces outcomes that correlate with racial demographics at a statistically significant level, and recommended the system be suspended pending independent review. Julius Chandler's response was handwritten in the margin. 2 words. File it. He knew. 3 years before Veronica walked into that bank, the founder of Heritage National Bank was told his system discriminated against black people. He was shown the data. He was given the recommendation. And he buried it. The Department of Justice opened a formal investigation 3 weeks after the verdict. Federal agents served Heritage National Bank's corporate headquarters in Atlanta with a subpoena covering 10 years of lending records across all 7 states the bank operated in. Julius Chandler's personal accounts were frozen. Trent Chandler was removed from his position. Gary Wood was terminated. 6 months later, Heritage National Bank entered into a consent decree with the DOJ. The bank paid $340 million in restitution to thousands of black applicants who had been denied loans over a decade. It was the largest lending discrimination settlement in Georgia's history. Julius Chandler was not arrested. He was not charged. Billionaires rarely are. But his bank was dismantled. His name was removed from the building. His son never worked in finance again. Veronica Reed opened her second location 4 months after the verdict. She used the settlement funds to secure the lease she had signed a year earlier, the one that had been contingent on financing. On opening day, Cassie Reed, now 8 years old, stood at the front door holding a pair of scissors that were almost as big as her arm. Alicia stood behind her, hands on her granddaughter's shoulders. Veronica stood next to them, holding the picture Cassie had drawn the year before. The building with flowers in the window. They had taped the drawing to the front door. Cassie cut the ribbon. The crowd applauded. Veronica didn't say anything. She just stood there, in the doorway of the business she had built, the one they told her she didn't qualify for, and watched her daughter walk inside. Alicia leaned over and whispered, "I told you, keep your receipts." There are people in this world who build systems, not to exclude, not to punish, but to make the word no sound like math instead of what it really is. Veronica Reed didn't burn anything down. She didn't scream in the lobby. She didn't post a video or start a hashtag. She walked out of that bank, called a lawyer, and let the numbers do the talking. Because the numbers don't lie. The system was designed to say no without saying why. And when someone finally forced it into the light, the why was exactly what everyone suspected, but nobody could prove. Until she did. If this story stayed with you, remember this. The most dangerous thing you can give a qualified person is a rejection they don't deserve. Because a person like Veronica Reed won't just walk away. She'll come back. With evidence. With a case number. And with 5 words that no amount of money can answer. See you in court. Click the video on your right to see the 3 other corporate espionage cases where self-representation destroyed billion-dollar companies, the legal loopholes they exploited, and the one statute that changes everything. You will see the patterns these strategists use, the mistakes their opponents make, and the exact moment when the trap closes.